Okay. Listen, we've all watched the presentation from Pimax revealing Pimax Crystal, which was showing us these amazing visuals that were compared to the image we will see on Index, on HTC, on Quest 2, and so on. And I clearly remember that the two headsets that were not compared to the visuals on Pimax Crystal were Vario Aero and Meta Quest Pro. But I did notice that Vario Aero was not included in this comparison. I wonder why. That was something suspicious, right? Because those two have really clear graphics, and Vario Aero is crowned the king of visual clarity. It's very hard to beat, and I have to tell you something. I went on a roadshow to meet the Pimax team, including the COO of the company, Kevin Henderson, in order to try hands-on their Pimax Crystal and the completely new device called Pimax Portal. And what do I see there? They brought both Quest Pro and Vario Aero to compare with the visuals on Pimax Crystal. That was something I did not expect, but really appreciated. And I have to tell you, this was one of the craziest experiences for me, because the clarity on Pimax Crystal is crystal clear. I cannot stress enough just how clear the image looked, and honestly I was short on words. While wearing Pimax Crystal, you could not see any pixels there at all. And I tried 2 games there. They had only 2 games: DCS World, which is digital combat simulator, like a kind of like a flight sim, but a combat flight sim, and Elite Dangerous. And I must say that colors really popped in both of those games. But specifically in Elite Dangerous is where I could see that the clarity was absolutely impeccable, because at the very home screen you get to see those little holograms of different orbits and starships, while normally you would probably see those little lines blend in together just because they're so far away. On Crystal, you could see every one of those little lines so clearly shown there and not merging in together. The pixels are not being overridden by each other. It is absolutely mind-blowing how clear those little details looked in VR and how sharp they were. That is the most shocking thing. Well, the other thing that was very close to being just that shocking was the FOV. And I of course reviewed Pimax 8KX, which they also brought to the roadshow to compare, and 8KX has this astonishingly wide FOV that has not been beaten by any of the headsets yet. And Pimax Crystal is not intending to beat that record either, but they had a more traditional FOV that is still very impressive. The horizontal FOV, that is. It looked pretty good. It was still pretty wide and much more open up that you could see on Quest 2 and Quest Pro as well. But the vertical FOV, oof, that is something that will really surprise you, because while I was wearing the headset, I specifically was trying to find that line, you know, where I get to see the black where the headset sort of begins, and when I looked up I couldn't see that line at all. Like, I would be looking up and all I could see was VR. This is amazing because you cannot see the edge of that FOV when you're looking up, and you can see just a little bit when you look down. That is incredible. And it is also something very easy to get used to, because I tried Vario Aero right after trying Pimax Crystal just to do a quick A/B comparison, and I was honestly quite shocked at how small that FOV is. It kind of seemed like looking through a little rectangular. You could not stop staring at those edges. But granted, the graphics and the sharpness and the clarity on Vario Aero is of course amazing, but Crystal is not worse. If anything, it's better. And I'll tell you why. It features a somewhat higher resolution than Vario Aero, and it has local dimming technology. Yes, the same local dimming that we can see on Quest Pro is now included in Pimax Crystal. And unlike on Quest Pro, where the developers of individual games need to sort of manually enable that for their games, in Pimax Crystal all games have the local dimming automatically. So any game that you try there, it will feature that local dimming. And again, it was incredible to to see in games that feature a lot of bright and dark spots, like Elite Dangerous, where I was sitting in that dark cockpit, but there were these bright holograms in front of me, and I could see just how dark the black color looks and how bright are those little holograms, and again, just how clear they looked with all those little lines not being blended or merged with each other. Absolutely incredible. And on top of that, Vario area is of course more expensive than Pimax Crystal, and it requires base stations and controllers, so that piles up to be a very pricey device, while Pimax Crystal features inside-out tracking technology. So when I was sitting and testing it, there were no base stations, there were 6 cameras on the headset, and no matter how I turned my head, I never lost tracking while I was testing it. This is, I'm sure, a lot of gamers will appreciate. But of course, what else is included in that package is controllers, and controllers is something that I didn't get to try, and that is because the firmware on the controllers is not yet finished. In general, the entire headset was not a finished product when I got to try it. I only got to test those 2 simulators that did not require controllers to move around. I was using SHOUTOUT controllers that you usually use for flight sims, and that just did the trick. But I also tried the PCVR that was connected with a cable, and in the final version that will be not just a regular cable but fiber optics one. And of course, during the presentation they promised us that we would have a wireless connection using WiGig module, which is also not something I got to test during the roadshow. Neither did I get to see the standalone games on Pimax Crystal. As you know, this headset is both PCVR and standalone. It has its own store where you can get games kind of like on Quest and Pico. But even though I didn't get to see the standalone capabilities of Pimax Crystal, I did see the removable batteries, the hot swappable batteries that will come in the same package when you buy a Pimax Crystal. You're getting not 1 but 2 batteries that you'll be able to use with your Pimax. That is of course incredible news, considering that we are really struggling with this issue with Quest Pro, where it doesn't have removable batteries or it doesn't have the battery strap. But back to controllers, for now this is more like a prototype. I mean, it's a late stage of a prototype, but not being able to test whether the controllers would be tracked properly is kind of a big deal. And I spoke to Kevin and he told me that there are so many issues with the controllers that they managed to fix in a very short time. For example, these controllers are going to be rechargeable, just like the controllers on Quest Pro. And they managed to bring the battery life from those controllers from several minutes to 2 hours. And of course, they're not going to stop on 2 hours. They're going to keep going until they reach whatever duration of the battery life that they are aiming for. Same with the tracking. They are planning to have the final version of the firmware ready by the CES 2023, which will happen in Las Vegas in January, and I cannot wait to go there and see all of those things that I didn't get to try during the roadshow. And it will also include the new lens that you'll be able to swap with the other lenses that the headset has. So essentially, the lenses that I tried featured 35 ppd, and with that the FOV was larger. But there's also another set of lenses that you'll be able to swap, and those lenses will have 42 ppd, even though a slightly smaller FOV. Honestly, this is a very unusual concept. To be frank, 35 ppd was amazing. Like I said, when I was looking through those lenses at the gameplay, it just looked so phenomenal, and I cannot even imagine what the 42 would look like. One more thing that I'm still yet to see and test on Pimax Crystal is eye tracking and face tracking, which again is something they promised will be available to try at CES. The eye tracking will allow dynamic foveated rendering, meaning that only the areas where your eyes are looking at will be rendered as sharp as possible. In the headset that I tried, there was not dynamic but rather static foveated rendering, and that actually caused a little bit of an issue, specifically at the bottom part of the lens. When I was looking down, I saw some strange blur or double vision, something that just didn't look right, and at first it seemed like that was an issue with the lens positioning, but upon further testing they found out that it was indeed the static foveated rendering that was causing this issue, and as soon as it was turned off, that issue disappeared. Speaking of blurriness, I could not see any other blurry edges when I was looking right or left or up. Everything looked sharp exactly until that very edge where you can't see the screen anymore. So that was a very nice surprise, that you don't have any discoloration discoloration or any blurriness on the edges. Pimax Crystal features a motorized IPD adjustment, but at this stage of the headset that I tried it, it was not automatic, so I had to press on the button and stop whenever I wanted the IPD adjustment to stop. And one interesting thing that will come with that IPD adjustment is that it will feature something that I have not seen in any other headset before. It will adjust each individual eye separately. I know that might sound weird because you're not some kind of an alien that has completely different eyes, but it is very rare that in human body we are 100% symmetrical. So in some cases we might have just a few millimeter or even 1 millimeter difference from right to left eye, while I never really noticed that that would be a big deal with any other headsets that have a more of a symmetrical IPD adjustment. Pimax Crystal will have this individual eye adjustment that will follow the gaze of your eye one at a time to make sure that it is as precise as possible. That is very interesting. I'm curious how it's going to look and whether it's going to make a difference. But of course, from my experience, Pimax is not the most comfortable headset to put on your head. Well, after testing 8KX, I know it took me quite some time to wiggle around with the head strap and find the best positioning on my head, and even when I thought I did, it still wouldn't be as comfortable as, well, the most comfortable headset I would ever put on, which is Quest 2 pimped up with BoboVR head strap. It had a strange double Velcro strap on the top, which seemed to be reversed because I couldn't really adjust it while wearing it on my head. And the whole headset is, of course, heavy. Yes, it is heavy, possibly a little bit lighter than 8KX, but you cannot even compare it to a headset like Vario Aero, for example, which seems rather light compared to Pimax Crystal. Pimax never seems to rethink their design of their head strap, and I don't know if that's the right decision, just because there are so many people who find this headset uncomfortable, and comfort might be even more important than the visuals, because no matter how clear your image is, if you can't wear your headset for longer than 30 minutes, it's just not gonna be a success. I will keep trying it again when I try a more final version of the headset at the CES. I will put a lot more effort at trying to adjust that headset as comfortable on my head as I can. Pimax Crystal is a very ambitious project and there is so much that they are planning to do with it, but in the stage that it is now, it is a powerful PC VR gaming headset, provided that it has the controllers that are tracking you accurately. In terms of the visuals, it provides the same, if not better, visuals that you see in Vario Aero, which is a lot more expensive headset, but minus the base stations with the full inside-out tracking and local dimming. The Pimax team told me that there are many surprises that I would be enjoying and testing out during CES, so I'm really looking forward to that. But of course, I'm specifically looking forward to checking out the new and improved version of Pimax Crystal that would target all of those little issues and just those things that I didn't get to test during the roadshow. I will get to try during the CES. It makes me so excited to finally go there and get all of that information for you. Now, this is everything I've learned about Pimax Crystal during the roadshow, but there is of course Pimax Portal that I also got to test, and this is very, very unusual, and some of the things that I've learned about this strange device may surprise you, so go ahead and watch the next video on my channel about Pimax Portal. See you next time!